This is a factual account of circumstances involved in a major aircraft accident at Cranbrook, BC. The voices you hear are those of the investigator in charge and the chairman of the witness group involved in the investigation. Shows a 737 on the approach to Cranbrook Airport. This scene, made in the simulator, shows a cockpit. The approach features a number of radio beacons and an instrument landing system. Right now, we're about half a mile from the runway, which is 6,000 feet long and 150 feet wide, oriented generally north-south. This landing is being made to the south. Close to the runway and about to fly low over it. In the accident sequence, the touchdown was 1,000 feet from the threshold, and in this location, 2,050 feet, there was a snow-clearing vehicle. The aircraft took off again, flew low over the snow-clearing vehicle, climbed to about 500 feet, then veered off to the left, dipped the left wing down, and struck the ground in this location where you see the wreckage. This is a helicopter being used, and now we're at the accident scene itself. The rear part of the aircraft can be clearly seen. A fire started very shortly after the impact. The fire seems to have started in two different locations, probably associated with the engines, and burned out a good deal of the fuselage, particularly the second section. In this area were most of the survivors. One survivor was in the forward part of the aircraft and escaped through the broken fuselage. This is the cockpit area. The entire scene of the wreckage was under close guard from a few minutes after the accident until the investigation in the field was complete. It can be seen that the snow is quite deep. This caused considerable difficulty to firefighting and rescue vehicles, which were unable to reach into the actual scene. However, the rescuers proceeded on foot. This view now at the left of the screen shows the first impact point where the left wingtip struck the ground. If you look carefully, some signs of fuel stains can be evident. A considerable amount of jet fuel escaped from the tanks, which were ruptured in the accident and fed the fire. This is a portion of the left wingtip. Once again, the depth of the snow is quite evident. All witness marks in the snow made by the aircraft during the crash sequence were recorded. the left engine showing the thrust reverser mechanism. It can be seen that the thrust reverser doors are in the open or deployed position. Once again, fuel stains are visible, and the extent of the breakup of the aircraft fuselage is apparent. Most of this wreckage is the center section of the aircraft. The entire wreckage was contained in a very small area, illustrating the steepness of the final descent path. This is baggage belonging to the passengers. It has been carefully set aside at this point for examination and for safe custody by the RCMP. The contents of these bags are examined in order to assist the identification process and also to ensure that the personal effects are returned to the proper quarter. This shows the left engine, the rear section. Found in examination at the site that the left engine had been under relatively low power, whereas the right engine had been producing high power at the time of impact.
The tail section of the aircraft. Damage to the elevator can be seen where an engine had struck this during the impact. This is looking from the scene back towards the Cranbrook Airport. Seats, etc., that have been removed from the wreckage. Portion of the cabin section to the right. Right-hand side of the cockpit area. Draw your attention to the stakes and tags that have been placed throughout the area to identify and record locations of specific items. This is the thrust reversers of the right-hand engine. The cover has been removed from the mechanical mechanism The hydraulic actuator, the mechanical mechanism is shown, which deploys and closes the thrust reverser doors. View of the same area. These doors on the right-hand engine were closed, but not completely stowed. A close-up in the area of the mechanical arms attachment point to the deflector doors. This is a view of the left-hand engine thrust reversers, and can be clearly seen that they are in the fully deployed position. And this is the condition these doors were in prior to ground impact. Once again, the cover has been removed from the hydraulic mechanical section, and the arms can plainly be seen. The impact damage to this particular area is considered fairly light. From the other side of the left-hand thrust reverser. There is no question in the minds of the investigators that the thrust reverser doors were fully deployed prior to ground impact. This is to show you the correlation between the cockpit motion or application of the thrust reverser, as has just been done, and the movement of the thrust reverser at the aft of the engine. Thrust reverser is closed at this point and deployed. The time delay that this view shows does not represent the actual deployment on the aircraft. In other words, when the thrust reverser levers are pulled back in the cockpit, the response is immediate. This is the left-hand engine, and the damage to the front end on the screen at this point can be seen is extensive to the compressor stages. Same engine viewed from the aft. At this point of the investigation, certain portions are being removed from the scene for further investigation. This is an engine assembly being loaded for removal. Bill?
You'll notice that on the truck there are automobile tires underneath the engine. This is to protect it during shipment. The engines are now in the overhaul facilities of Canadian Pacific Airlines in Vancouver, where they're being examined by specialists.
The constant speed unit with the generator is being removed and will be examined further.
It was determined during this examination of the engines that they had been in good condition and were running at the time of the accident. The left engine was producing relatively low power, whereas the right engine was producing high power. This is consistent with other evidence obtained from other sources, including witness statements, some data recovered from the flight data recorder, which had been seriously damaged by heat and fire, but it did provide a certain amount of recoverable data. These specialists are now removing part of the front section of the engine to examine the bearings. This is the overhead cockpit area. We're now inside the damaged cockpit. The instrument panel has been removed and placed out in the snow on a tarpaulin. After careful photography and recording of any trapped indications on the instruments, they will be removed to the laboratory for detailed examination. It's difficult to determine what any of these indications are at this point. This is the airspeed indicator on the co-pilot's side. It can be seen that it's reading 88 knots, which could very well represent the final indication at impact. This is a picture of the snow clearing equipment on the runway. It was put here for the purposes of this photography, and it represents, as we believe, the actual position during the accident sequence.